Hi, Michael Bettine here, back after an extended vacation from all my YouTube activities. So welcome to 2022. And today's video is an update. With YouTube, you can do all types of analytics, and you can see what videos are watched the most, how many times they're watched, where around the globe people are watching from, and various statistics. And surprisingly, my most popular video that is consistently watched more than all the others by a wide margin is from 2011. So it's a little over a 10-year-old video. And that one is on these right here, friction mallets. So I first did a video back in 2011 all about friction mallets and detailing everything, how to make them, how to play them. And in the ensuing years, things have changed tremendously. In fact, things have changed tremendously in the whole gong industry in that time. If I go back 20 years ago, when I started doing this thing full time, the situation was very, very different. There were few gong makers out there. There were the majors, and there were a couple of independent people like Steve Huback. Besides that, there was nobody else making gongs. And friction mallets, or as they're commonly called, Flumi, were non-existent. You had to make your own. And I was introduced to Flumi by my good friend Freddie Studer, who used to work for Paiste in their research and development department in Switzerland. And he was in Chicago on an artist grant for about 6 weeks, and I got to go down and hang out with him. And he did a big recording session down there for an album of his, and they rented a 50-inch gong from Andy's Music, and he was playing it with this big Superball mallet that I had never seen before. I was like, wow, what is this? The sounds were quite amazing. So I asked Freddie about it, and he got the idea, he got the mallets from the guys at Paiste, guys who make the gongs. And he taught me what to do. This is my original friction mallet, Flumi, that I made nearly 20 years ago. It's a Superball, and back then he told me to use piano wire, also known as musical instrument wire. You can buy this at a lot of hardware stores. It's fairly stiff but flexible steel wire, and you basically find the right sort of Superball, jam the wire in there, and you're off. And I used this mallet for many, many, many years. You can even see here a bit. It's got a flat side on it from using it so much. And eventually, the rubber compound on this ball dried out, and it has cracked. I've even kind of glued it together to keep it from cracking, but it's pretty much dried out, and it works a little bit still, but it's like, doesn't really get much grip. But I did a lot of recording, a lot of live playing with this mallet, because back then you could not go and buy Flumi anywhere. You had to make your own. So I put an article up on my website about making your own, and that has been popular over the years. And I continued to make various ones. Here's two similar ones to that with the same size Superballs. So now, not all Superballs are created even. Some work really well, some don't. Some you have to sand down a bit so they get more of a grip. Others just work right away. Like this one works really well. This one works sometimes. So it was always kind of a hit and miss thing with Superballs. And I have boxes full of Superballs that didn't work. Other ones I've made, here's one on a thin wooden handle, just a regular Superball. Here's one, this is actually on a chopstick, a wooden chopstick from a restaurant. And this is a really nice one for getting some deep tones. So I was making my own Flumi for years and years and years because there were no commercially available ones. And then I believe it was in around 2005 possibly, Mike Balter Mallets, then based in the Chicago area, came out with the Emil Richards Super Rubs, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with. And they found a real nice sticky rubber compound and put these on a nice little flexible nylon type handle. And these were great. And we see a lot of these out there and people use them all the time. I still use them because they are great for a lot of different sounds. Now the thing is, different size balls and also different rubber compounds will give you different sounds. So it's nice to have a whole arsenal like this, depending on what you're going for. But these aren't great. I like using them on gongs. I like using them on drums. They work really well on those too. Another popular commercial one is what's known as the E-wand. And if you read my blog about these, this is nothing more than a barbecue skewer with a silicone handle on the end. Put your meat and veg on there, and there you go. You got your kebabs. That's all it is. And they sell these for $25 here in the States, in most places as an E-wand. It will have a little shorter handle, probably about this short, and it'll be rubber covered, but it's the exact same thing as this. I found this at my local grocery store for $3.99, so I bought a whole bunch of them. And it's the exact same thing. I've played these side by side with an E-wand. I just have a little longer handle. It does have a sharp end, so I rubber coated it to keep me from getting poked, but it's an E-wand. Look for barbecue skewers. Now the big thing is silicone works really good on the gongs. So if you can find various kitchen implements and other things made of silicone, you can use them on your gongs to get different sounds. This is a small, like tongue drum mallet or children's mallet with a rubber compound on it, and this works pretty good. I got a whole box of these from my wife, who used to be an elementary school music teacher. So these can work really well. These two I got from Grota Sonora from Madava at the first Gong Summit back in 2019. He had made some of these and brought a whole bunch to the summit, and he said, oh, you can have a couple if you want, because I bought one of their gongs. And basically what he has done is taken a ball and cut it in half. And you will see a lot of these type out there. And cutting it in half does have an advantage, is it gives you this edge right here where it's cut. I've also seen them turn around the other way, so they're pointing like this with the edge up. And sometimes I think that's a little better way to do it, because then you can get more leverage on it. But this works really well if you can get a nice clean edge and catch that edge. Of course, they never work when you want to try them and demonstrate them. It's a homemade Flumi, some of the early commercial Flumi, and repurposed mallets from other things. As I said, things have really changed in the 20 or so years since I started really concentrating on gongs and using Flumi. And today we have probably the most popular ones and arguably the best Flumi out there, the ones from Bear Love. Now these are made out of silicone, just like the E-wand, and they really do grip well on the gongs and create some fantastic sounds. The larger ones are all on wooden handles, and the smaller ones are on a thin graphite handle. There, you kind of see that against the gong. Now these are great, and I love them. They're expensive, but they last, they don't dry out, and they really do the job. But these sound very different than these over here. So that's important. Just like having a whole bag of different mallets, I think you really need a variety of Flumi to get different types of sounds. I mean, the Bear Love have a Bear Love sound. And it's great, and I love it, and it's fantastic. But the Super Rubs sound very different. The E-wand is different. These homemade ones are different. They all create their own sort of sound and textures. So if you're serious about what you're doing, again, just like having a bag full of mallets, I think you really need to have a variety of friction mallets to give you all sorts of different sounds and not just one type of sound. Let's take a look at playing with these mallets and how to play with these mallets, because they all need a little different technique. Okay, this is my 32-inch Symphonic gong, which is a really great gong for using various friction mallets or Flumi on. So first I want to talk about things I see on the internet, especially people playing Flumis, especially like in a demo capacity. Sometimes people are demonstrating gongs and that, and they'll take a typical one. This is one of the Mike Balter Super Rubs, and they'll hold it way back by the end and sort of drag it like this. And you can hear that. I mean, it just, here's a smaller one. It just doesn't sound very good at all. So let's look at the mechanics of how all of this is working. When I play a Flumi, I'm thinking of myself as a string player, like violin, cello, or bass. So these work very much like a bow. If you're playing a bow on a string, if my finger is the string and this is the bow, there's friction. And by dragging it across the string, it causes the string to vibrate. And that's what creates our sound. Now here it's very much the same thing. By dragging the ball across the face of the gong, it causes the metal to vibrate. So when you hold one of these way out here, you really don't get a good vibration, partly because this is way too flexible, and also it's just going to kind of scrape the surface. You need some pressure on the ball. You cannot really get any pressure out here. But the other important thing, again, think like a string player. If you want to know what I mean, watch some videos of orchestras, or especially like a string quartet. Go on YouTube, just type in string quartet, and watch some of these players, violin, viola, cello, watch them play and how they approach the bow. And when you see them, they're not like grinding and pushing down really hard, and the bow isn't like all bendy and flexy and all that. No, what they are doing is using just enough pressure to get contact with the string. And in doing so, it's very much like if you think of surfing. A surfer doesn't push down on their board and get under the water, right? That wouldn't work. What a surfer does, here's your wave, the surfer is up on top riding that wave. Same thing with a bow. It's riding the top of the string. It's riding the wave. So you want to get just enough contact to get the friction to vibrate the string. You're not going to grind down on it. You just don't see players, like really getting into it. It's not necessary to create a sound, especially a very nice sound. So just like bowing a stringed instrument, you want to ride on top of the string. Here we want to ride on top of the metal. And again, we can't hold it way out here and expect to get much. Yeah, I can get some sound, but I need to choke up some. And depending on the sound I want, I'll choke up in different places. Now on this, I can go right up on the ball. I have my thumb against the ball. I can feel it vibrate, but I'm holding it loosely here between the thumb and the first finger. These other fingers are just sort of cradling it. Now I can move out just a little bit and let this flex a little more. Move out a little more. All right, see how that opened right up there? So, I'm about 1.5 inches, 2 inches away from the ball, holding it on the shaft. So on this mallet, and each mallet will be different. Some of them will have an optimum place that you want to hold it in to get a really full and nice sound like this one. Others will have multiple optimum spots. And then again, if we change to a different gong, we might have to adjust our hand once again, because each gong will react differently to each Flumi. So out here, I get a nice sound, allowing this to flex a little bit. Let's move out a little more. Notice how the tone went down. If I move back up, so let's move way down. This is probably about 4 inches. Still working, but it's getting a little too flexy here, where I can't get a good contact, and it's just kind of not working as well, just like holding it way down at the end. So 2 to 4 inches is really kind of an optimum range on this one. And if you notice again, I'm not like forcing it into the gong. I'm getting just enough pressure to ride on top of the metal and get it to activate. sometimes when you start, you need to give it a little more pressure to get the gong moving. Once it's vibrating, you can ease up, and it seems to work much better. So sometimes if I'm playing a Flumi, I might tap the gong lightly with my finger or strike it with a mallet very softly. Let's grab a mallet here. Just a real light tap so that I get the metal going. Not loud enough for people to hear, but just to get it going. So that I don't have to push real hard to start things. And now I'm up all the way, and because the gong's moving, this works much better. Where trying to get the gong going, it just wasn't happening. But now, because the gong is moving, vibrating, so as I always say, you need to practice. You just can't order a set of Flumi, play them a couple times at home, go out to your gig, and expect things to happen. You really need to practice. So I've had a 2-week layoff here with the holidays, and I've been down here in my lab just working every day. I've been playing with all sorts of different mallets. I've been switching gongs around. I've been playing with the Flumies. I've been putting in my time so that when I have my next gig in January, I'll be ready. And hopefully I'll have some new ideas and some new sounds from working on everything. But you have to practice. It just doesn't happen by hope and wishes, you know. You have to put in your time. And I know that I say that in a lot of videos and in a lot of my writings and on Facebook a lot, but it's true. You have to work at it. You just can't expect to create all kinds of amazing sounds unless you put your time in. Okay, so this is a Mike Balter Super Rub. This is the big one. Let's take the smaller one. This is probably an inch. What is this, about a 2-inch? Same idea. So here I am. I've got all these different mallets. I'm working with one gong, and I'll go through all the different mallets and find how they work. Then I'll move to the next gong, do the whole process again. Third gong, the whole process again. Fourth gong, how many ever gongs I want to work with, and go through this whole process. And then I'll start combining gongs, and I'll move from one gong to another. And that's why I've done my homework, because now I have to adjust what I'm doing. So if I go from this gong to this gong, they're going to take a different technique. It's going to take a little different grip. Might even just take a completely different Flumi to do what I want. So I'm putting in my time. So let's just try this one again. If I get up real close, right on the head, it's just not getting much happening. Let's see if it'll help. Just give it a little tap, some vibration. Yeah, this just isn't moving enough. So I'll back off a little, about an inch. There, now we start to get some sounds. The ever popular whale sounds. Now I'll move down like another inch. So I'm 2 inches off the ball. Notice how the pitch drops some. another inch, about 3 inches. Move down another inch. Now the pitch has dropped quite a bit by now, by about 4 inches off, but I'm really losing the effectiveness of it. I can feel it. It's just not working as well as so here's the thing. If you want a deeper sound, you need to go to a larger size. You can only get so much of a really effective usable range with each size ball. So if you think you can get really low sounds out of this, you can get some, but they're not going to be effective. Just like if I hold it way back here, it's kind of hit or miss. I got some lower tones, but you notice how flexible it is. I really have to push to get it to activate. Where here, I'm just riding on the top of the metal. Now, another thing to take in consideration is the angle. Different ones will work better at different angles. Sometimes if you have to hold it pretty much parallel to the gong. Sometimes a mallet will work if you have it at an angle. Probably, what is this, about 40 degrees or so. And often that will bring out even different sounds. But for most of them, I try to keep it fairly parallel with the gong because that seems to get the best effect. Here, we'll take this one here. So here's one of them that I've made. So holding it right up to the ball, my thumb is on the ball. I'm holding it between the thumb and about the first knuckle, or maybe slightly behind, of the forefinger here. And the other fingers, they're just loosely wrapped around. So I can move down a little. Lower tones. And what that's doing is when you are right up here on it, this is just barely vibrating. As you move down, this can flex more. So suddenly it's moving more against the gong. And that will allow you to get the lower tones. Holding it way up here, it's vibrating very small. So small vibrations are high sounds. Down here, it's vibrating off the gong. It's a little dramatic here, but it's vibrating more off the gong, and you're getting lower tones. So again, you need to work with different mallets and find the optimum place to hold them for the sounds you want. Now this one, I really like holding it right up here to get just that higher sound. It's really a nice full sound. some mallets I'll use for just one sound because it does it so perfectly on a particular gong. I'll hold it one way and use it for one sound. Other gongs, they work great for multiple sounds on the same gong. And again, we can change gongs. This mallet just might not do it on another gong. Might not create much. Might not create a type of sound I want. So another reason to have multiples. Okay, here's that drum mallet. It's a very spongy, porous rubber. Now this one, I know it works real well if I hold it about 3 inches down. If I hold it way up here, it doesn't vibrate enough. This one has to have a little give so that it can flex. So that's that. Here's the ever popular E-wand. Now, because it's a very small head, and also because it's very thin, and you're not getting much contact area with the gong, this is really only good for those high, squeaky porpoise sounds. And it does those extremely well. And you see, each time I've moved my hand down, and the tone drops some, but as you can tell, these are only good for really high, squealy sounds. And at that, the E1 excels over probably all other mallets. The one thing I really like about the E1 is the flat surface here. It's really great to put your thumb on as opposed to a round surface. And it's really good for control. And I think this acts much like a leaf spring. So I like these. It would be nice to see an E1 with a bigger end on it. I would be curious how well that would work. But these are great. If you want the dolphin sounds, the very high squeals, the E1 can't be beat. And check your grocery store, your hardware store, in their grilling and barbecue section, and you might find these at a real bargain instead of spending $25. Okay, let's look at the Grota Sonora ones made out of the half ball. And like I said, the nice thing about the half ball is you get this edge here. Although I sort of prefer it if it's flipped over this way, because then when you drag it, I think you've got a little more control over this edge on the face of the gong. But this can work really well. I think these have dried out in the 2.5 years since I've gotten them. They don't quite have the friction they used to. This works best when I can get this edge right here. This edge, when I can get that on the gong, not the face of the ball, but the very edge. That's when it works best. If I can get that angle. So I said I would like to have these flip the other way. So going this way, I wouldn't have to hold it so, I mean, I almost have to go into the gong with the handle to get the edge. Where if the edge was up here, I could hold it like this and get the edge. But I've seen many people make them this way with the half ball. As you can see, this one is great. It opens the gong right up, getting those very high sounds. So you can see the size difference here. And it's just a bouncy ball, cut in half, put a stick on it. Okay, let's look at the Bear Love Flumies now. As I said, these are made out of silicone rubber. He's definitely hit on the right formula. And the bigger ones are on a wooden handle, which does come off. And you can just pop it back on. So when I'm playing, especially with the bigger ones, I'll just, make sure it's back on there in between strokes sometimes. Because the last thing I need is to have the ball go bouncing around and trying to collect it. But these are great. They come in different sizes. This is a number 5. And let's just talk about how these work, and the other ones too. These are great with your thumb right up on the ball and your finger just right behind it. So it's a pinch, but it's not, I don't hold it really tight. These other fingers usually just wrap around. Sometimes I will hold onto the stick to keep the stick from vibrating. And we'll talk about that. But these are great. What I like about that is it takes very little effort. And I don't really have to dig into the gong to get it going. I just glide across the top and let it happen. Again, I'm thinking like I'm a cello player. And this is my bow. And I'm just pulling it across the string. The thing I found with the Bear Loves is they're mostly a one position, one tone type mallet, but they do that amazingly well, as you can tell. I can move down on it and get a little deeper sound. But the thing I have to watch for, it's just like when you're playing a singing bowl and you're going around and you don't have even pressure and suddenly you get that bring, bring, that chatter sort of sound where you're bouncing on the rim of the singing bowl. It's the same thing here. If I don't keep a constant contact, you hear that? This is going to take a big skip. Sometimes that's from letting up on the pressure holding the mallet. If I move down the mallet, I tend to grip it tighter because I don't want this to move too much. lower tone, but there, to me, it's not really a good tone. I'm getting a lot of bounce, and it doesn't feel good to play. So what would I do? I would move to a larger size to get a deeper sound. But these are good. Again, each mallet and each gong will be different. On the 32-inch here, choking right up to the ball, and maybe an inch or two off, I can get really usable tones. Move down a little. Much more past that, it's really hard to control and get a solid sound and to keep it from bouncing. So if I move up, that was a 5, let's go to a 6 here. That really got the whole gong vibrating, and you can just feel it and hear it. So once I got the gong going, I could make small figure-8 circles here to keep it going. A nice drone. And I can do that indefinitely, really. I can widen my figure-8. And you can control your volume. Slow down. Lighten up a little. Now if I want more volume, I can press a little more and also play faster. So again, it's very much like being a string player and playing a violin or a cello and using a bow. And that's how I think about it when I approach playing. I'm bowing the gong. Now sometimes I'll take my free hand and hold the edge. And what that is to keep this stable so the stick isn't wiggling. Because sometimes, especially in the lower tones, you get going and the stick starts wiggling, and that's when you get the ball jumping. So if I use the other hand to stabilize it, that can work really well. Let's go to a bigger one. This is a 6.5. ball, make sure it's still on. Now, one thing I will do sometimes is when I'm getting that drone going, I'll let up the pressure in my fingers and let it do that sort of flutter, so suddenly I get this dark tone come out. Let's see if I can demonstrate that. At the end of the stroke there, and just getting that, let that happen. Or you can just kind of completely stop the motion and the sound. You could hear it at the end of that stroke. These are things I practice. I'm down here, I'm working with my gongs, I'm working with the different size mallets. I'm finding the optimal places on the face of the gong or on the edge of the gong to get the sounds that I want. I'm finding which mallet gets what sound, where to hold the mallet, where to play the mallet, all these different things, and I'm committing them to memory. So when I go out to play, I know what I'm doing. It's no different than a concert pianist or concert violinist going up on stage. They're going to play a certain concerto, and they know what they're going to do. There's no accidents. They know what notes to play, how to play them, especially in a string player, where to play, how to bow, fast bowing, long, slow bowing, different techniques. It's the same here. We are musicians. These are high quality instruments. These are high quality mallets. So we need to work at it. So spend your time. Now on this gong, I like to get the deep drone like this going and then play bells and bowls and other gongs while I have the drone happening. I think it makes a great backdrop. Sometimes as I'm pulling it across, I'll let up on the grip and just hold on this end and use the pressure from the thumb against the gong. Different techniques you develop. Over here, this is you can't really see it, this is a number 0 bronze gong. Completely different gong, but I know how that gong reacts to this number 4 mallet, and I've practiced on it a lot, so I can move from one gong to another and get it to do what I want. Now here is probably one of the most important things I can tell you. You may have noticed I've been doing everything with my right hand. If you're right-handed, you will do that. If you're left-handed, you'll do everything with your left hand. Practice with the other hand. I do practice with both hands. I was mainly playing with the right hand because it's closer to the camera and I felt it was easier to see. Oftentimes I'll have a Flumi in each hand, different sizes, so I can switch them off, or I will be playing 2 different gongs so I can get happening at once. And sometimes I'll even have like 2 of them in one hand. So I'm switching off, between them, just kind of rotating and using a different one. Or I will even have a different mallet. I'll be playing with the Flumi and I'll have another mallet in my hand. And I'll put the Flumi in my mouth and then play something with the other mallet. Whatever it takes to do what I need to do. And again, this takes practice. None of this just happens by accident. These are all techniques and ideas I've developed over the years. So work at it. Practice. Spend your time in your studio. Spend your time with your gong, whether it's with regular mallets or Flumi or whatever. You do need to work. The gong itself, this is just a piece of metal. It's beautiful to look at, but inherently the sound could be anything. And you can have 2 or 3 people play the same gong and it will bring out different sounds because each person has a different touch, different technique, will use different mallets and all that. So you are the sound. The gong is just a piece of metal and you need to work at it to find out how to get the sound out of you into the gong and make it happen. So there we go. Flumi's 2021-2022. An update to my most popular YouTube video. A lot has happened in those years, so I'm glad I was able to present this. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks a lot for being here. Hit subscribe if you really like my series. I try to put one out every Wednesday, so check back. I've got some special short videos coming up that I'll throw in here and there. And eventually I'll get back to my instrument series after I dig some things out of storage. We'll get more into my tuned gong set and my melodic gong play, my Philippine kulintang, and a few other instruments. So we'll see you then. Thanks.